Good evening, everybody. The Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. Yes, I do know that Halloween was yesterday. However, this is going to be Halloween weekend, so it's giving me an excuse to dress up for the occasion. We already have the lights for a party that we're going to be doing tomorrow, and I put on part of my costume. Now I will put on the whole thing, but unfortunately, I'm a little bit stuffed up right now, and I need to be able to breathe for this video. So apologies if I sound a little bit under the weather, but we're going to push on through. And this costume actually ties in a little bit with the Are You In For Tonight, which is Hobo Johnson's newest album entitled The Fall of Hobo Johnson. Frank Lopes Jr., otherwise known as Hobo Johnson, is a spoken word artist slash rapper from California. He is also the lead vocalist for the Lovemakers and also plays guitar, keyboards, and does production. Other members of Lovemakers include Derek Lynch on guitar, Jordan Moore on guitar and keyboards, and David Bays Lopez on bass guitar, Ben Lurch on drums, and Jim Z on keyboard and guitar. They've had two previous albums, including Hobo Johnson's 94 Corolla in 2015 and The Rise of Hobo Johnson 2016. But, like most of you, my first dive into this band was with the viral video Peach Scones. I really enjoyed it. I love the indie hip hop vibe. I love the comedy of the lyrics, but also just the imagery and the conversational aspect of it. It wasn't totally hip hop, totally rap. There was a lot more conversation, and that drew me to what this band was doing, as well as Frank Lopes' style. It was really interesting. And though I didn't check out The Rise of Hobo Johnson at the time, this was a band that I was keeping my eyes on for the future. Well, lo and behold, they dropped The Fall of Hobo Johnson. This is another album where two of my main sources for album reviews hugely differ. Pitchfork gave this album a 3.6, stating that they were kind of tired of the act of Hobo Johnson, as well as them feeling like there wasn't really anything new here. A lot of the stuff being bland. If you're looking for a really scathing review of this album, definitely check this out afterwards. Meanwhile, Anthony Fantano gives this album a decent 8, liking a lot of the lyrical content, a lot of the conversational aspects, and finding a lot of these songs very interesting. So, of course, I want to play my new favorite game, which is Pitchfork or Fantano. Which side am I going to fall on? Well, that's for me to know and for you guys to find out. First though, before I checked out this album, I wanted to check out The Rise of Hobo Johnson. I wanted to give myself the background I needed to see how this compared and contrasted with his newest album. Taking a look at both of these, I can say that The Fall of Hobo Johnson feels a little bit more polished and a little bit more diverse. This also does feel a little bit more mainstream though. So it definitely got a lot of good production this time around in comparison to The Rise of Hobo Johnson. Not to say that The Rise of Hobo Johnson is bad, it just felt a little bit similar at times, which is one of the positives of this new album. There is so much more diversity on this album. Whether you have funnier or more whimsical songs or sketches like Typical Story, You and the Cockroach, Subaru Crosstrek, Ode to Justin Bieber, or I Want a Dog, or if you're looking for some more sad songs like Moonlight, Happiness, All in My Head, Sorry My Dear. A lot of these songs fit either one of those molds and does so in a solid way that makes each song stand out instead of all of them feeling like they are very similar in that heading. But what you're also hearing is a lot of very mainstream sounds, stuff that sounds very similar to Macklemore, if you will. I could see Macklemore doing a song like Subaru Crosstrek or Justin Bieber, but I could also see her doing something like Happiness or All in My Head, even Typical Story. There isn't much here that stands out musically. You do get some more indie rock vibes on Typical Story. You get some cool effects on Move Her Away. Ugly Kid has a solid trumpet solo. Subaru Crosstrek feels very simplistic and the most like a Macklemore song, but I just really like the groove. Happiness has a very solid, somber, and simplistic arrangement. And even Ode to Justin Bieber and Moonlight do stand out for having weirder arrangements, though not always working. Moonlight going from this very jazzy song to a little bit more eerie and a sparse arrangement, while Ode to Justin Bieber has this very zany and really upbeat vibe that works for parts, though it suffers from feeling like the lyrics and the music never mesh up for a little bit. Also, it has this slower piano part later on that feels a little bit out of place. There are parts where this album does shine, and usually that's for lyrics. Typical Story has a really interesting contrasting idea of looking at how not every story ends with a happy ending or even gets to that happy ending, whether it's a king who had everything except people to actually love him, or if it's a dog that was trying to get out of his cage and live his life in freedom, but also finding out that it's just safer to and better to be in a cage. And what also stands out is the difference in dynamics when you get to the bridges. When Frank brings the energy down, those are some of the nice, more interesting parts on the album. I just really enjoyed the vibe in general. It definitely is a single vibe, but it works. Move Aware also stands out for having a more interesting and more mainstream arrangement, especially with the use of like different sound clips. But it's still really fun, and it has some great lyrics talking about how this person that he loves that is moving away makes his Mondays feel like Fridays and his Ruby Tuesdays feel like Benihana's. Really funny and cheesy at points. Subaru Crosstrek is very simple, but I love the idea of the spoof on how most rappers brag about their wealth and accomplishments, but he's talking about being more financially stable and financially sensible about his purchases, getting a Subaru Crosstrek rather than a Bentley or a Maserati or anything like that. And it even ends with a ad for Subaru Crosstrek. I think it's really, really funny and a really interesting idea. You and the Cockroach, really fun skit about the rise and fall of human civilization. This one is a little bit repetitive in the arrangement, but works well and does build to a musical climax. And I won't spoil the whole entire thing, but it's a blast to listen to. Ode to Justin Bieber, even though it's a weird song, I do love the idea of Frank looking at Justin Bieber's fame and comparing it to his own, and hoping that he would be able to keep a level head as he gets bigger with fame. But there's also some really, really heartbreaking songs on here too. Happiness is about writing your own life story rather than having someone else write it for you. It deals with Frank being in a relationship with somebody else and them breaking off because of wanting to pursue something bigger and better. And it's talking about how Frank's dealing with his own life and how his life is already planned out for him because of his dad's drinking addiction and how that runs in the family. It stands out for being that personable. Same thing with the idea of All in My Head, talking about not letting the thoughts in your head become the reality you see, or something like February 15th, another somber song about missing an ex after Valentine's Day. It's a short one, we've heard it before, but it's still solid as a live version. Moonlight is the continuation of Move Aware, and that continues that vibe of feeling sad. I love the imagery at the beginning where it's a little bit more fun and playful, and it contrasts very well with the somberness of the rest of the song. That all culminating into a final sad song, Sorry My Dear. A little bit of backstory with some of Frank's writing. If you don't know him that well, one of the criticisms that you will hear about his music is that it is a little bit tad or dramatic. A lot of depressive ideas, even going so far as breaching topics of suicide and suicidal thoughts. And this song is no different. However, I find it very powerful, and I do really enjoy the build of this song. This takes the same approach as the second to last song from his previous album, where he uses a lot of auto-tune. But this one is so effective because of just how it builds, the power, the raw emotion that you hear in his voice, even though it is auto-tuned. Makes for one of the more standout songs on the album. However, there is one that I will say that doesn't stand out too well with the auto-tune, and it also brings up another one of the criticisms that you hear a lot of about his lyrics. The woe is me, where it's a nice guy trope. This guy is always down on his luck about women, and it feels like, why isn't someone with me? I'm such a good guy, I'm such a nice guy. Not a great trope. Throughout the whole entire album, I say it works solidly because of a bunch of interesting arrangements and interesting imagery on a lot of these songs. But Ugly Kid featuring Elohim, this is where it falls apart a little bit. The auto-tune doesn't work. It makes him sound very whiny. The background vocals around him makes this song sound like a very bland Electric Guest song. I don't enjoy a lot of the lyrics on here. If you were to pinpoint a song where people can criticize him for being whiny, this is that song, which is unfortunate because I think a lot of this album is very solid with the imagery, with the imaginative ideas, and it ends on a really solid song, I Want a Dog. This very uplifting song about what Frank wants in his life for the future, and also trying to be a little bit more concrete with that and a little bit more realistic. It starts off with saying he wants a dog, he wants a family, he wants to be successful, but then it turns into he wants his dog to talk and star in movies, and he wants his wife to sing and own a record label, and he wants his kid to learn guitar by the age of 3 and teach him guitar. It's a really cool song about expectations and about being realistic, because if you don't be realistic, then you get too in your head and then you get bogged down with all the failure that you feel like you haven't had because your expectations aren't realistic. It's a really powerful song about just wanting to be loved, being respected, being wanted, and being remembered. And I think it's a great way of ending this album. An album with a lot of really poignant lyrics, interesting lyrical topics. And yeah, the arrangements aren't always that interesting, but they do just enough to keep you hooked and give you enough room for Frank's poetry and rapping. To me, this is a much better album of the two that I've heard so far, and I would love to see what else he can do. I would love to see him push a little bit more outside the conventions of hip-hop, because right now a lot of people could see him being bogged down as a Macklemore. As much as I love Macklemore and I've loved a lot of his stuff, it would be really cool for him to branch out to be something a little bit different. And he tries on stuff like Moonlight and the Justin Bieber. Unfortunately, those just don't work enough for me, but it's really cool ideas, and I would love to see what he can do in the future. For now, though, I would say this deserves a full listen. This isn't a long album, and there's a lot of really interesting concepts, a lot of really conversational lyrics, and a lot of really fun, happy arrangements, and a lot of really poignant, somber arrangements, making for a standout hip-hop spoken word album. If you haven't listened to Hobo Johnson and been hesitant to check out any of his music, I would say give this one a chance. This one's definitely more diverse than this previous. But that is my time. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you like or hate this album and your reasons why. Let me know other albums in 2019 you'd like me to review. Share this with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to my channel. That way I know that you enjoy what I'm doing and want to see this channel become bigger and better for the future. So tomorrow I'll be back with another argument. Until then, this is the Music Fan signing off. Happy Halloween.